Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my predictions for the first half of bowl season, for the first half of the bowl season bowl games. I consider the first day of bowl season, which starts on Saturday, December 15th, this upcoming Saturday. I consider that the first half of bowl season, and that takes us up to December 24th or December 23rd this year. And then after Christmas, I call that the second half of bowl season. So Christmas is like that little break in between. And then the second half of bowl season, you got the Power 5 conference games, those games that everybody's been looking at for a while. They've been wanting those matchups. But we're going to get into these bowl games first. We're going to start off with the Air Force Reserve Celebration Bowl. Not many people talk about this bowl game because it's an FCS bowl. You got unknown conferences playing in this game. So I pick off of teams I've heard about in the past. In the past this season, I heard about Alcorn State. They won their SWAC conference championship 30-19, I believe was the final score. I couldn't find any stats on either of these teams very much, so I'm going to pick it based on that. Give me Alcorn State, the SWAC conference champions, in the Celebration Bowl. And I have been pretty spot on with my Celebration Bowl picks, but don't take that from me. I'm not the best at bowl picking. Not to gloat. That's the only bowl game I really feel confident about every year. But we're gonna get into the FBS bowl games now. Let's start off with the AutoNation Cure Bowl. Tulane taking on Louisiana. Tulane allowing 419.2 yards per game and 27.8 points per game allowed. Their defense not been the best, going up against the Louisiana offense with 32.5 points per game and 437.1 yards per game. I think that's a recipe for success for Louisiana. Give me Louisiana in the AutoNation Cure Bowl. Next, the New Mexico Bowl. North Texas taking on Utah State. Utah State ranked number 22 at one point in the season. Not able to win the Mountain West Conference, but they very well could have. Close game against Boise State to get into the Mountain West Conference Championship. Weren't able to do so. They have 47.2 points per game. Their offensive charts through the roof. North Texas, their defense, not eye-popping stats, but a 21.8 points allowed per game. North Texas, their defense has been pretty good, but I think Utah State's offense is too much to handle for the mean green of North Texas. Give me Utah State in the New Mexico Bowl. Next, the Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Bowl. 21th ranked Fresno State taking on Arizona State. Fresno State 34.9 points per game. Arizona State allowing 25.1 points per game. And the ranked Fresno State, they've got momentum going into this game. Give me the ranked team in this one. Fresno State takes the Las Vegas Bowl. Next, the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl. Georgia Southern taking on Eastern Michigan, some teams that have had their conferences fly under the radar this season. Georgia Southern allowing 21.6 points per game and 31.1 points per game. That has been their offensive defensive stats. And then Eastern Michigan, 22 points allowed per game and 352.9 yards allowed per game. So their defense with not the best stats. I think Georgia ends up taking this one home, winning with a couple of defensive stops. Give me Georgia Southern in the Camellia Bowl. R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Middle Tennessee taking on Appalachian State. Appalachian State, the Sun Belt champions. Middle Tennessee, the Conference USA runner-ups. And Appalachian State taking Penn State to overtime the first week of the season, being ranked at number 25 at one point, a team that they have been rated exactly where they need to be. Appalachian State has been fantastic this season. 278.9 yards allowed per game, 15.7 points allowed per game. And when you got Middle Tennessee with only 29.2 points per game, and with the new college football era of offenses, that's not going to bode well against a 15-point points allowed per game Appalachian State defense, only getting 388.5 yards per game. And with an Appalachian State defense with with numbers on top of the charts, Middle Tennessee, with the new era of college football not working out for them offensive wise, give me Appalachian State with all the momentum, and many people picking them in the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Next, we're going to go with the Cherub Bundy Boca Raton Bowl. UAB, the Conference USA champions, defeating Middle Tennessee 27-25, and they have had one heck of a story. 2 years ago, their football program shut down 2 years ago. That's when it came back last season. They shocked a lot of people, and then this year they end up winning Conference USA. They're going to be taking on Northern Illinois, the MAC Conference champions. Illinois with 21.5 points allowed per game and 347.8 yards allowed per game. UAB with 29.3 points per game and 400.3 yards per game. I think UAB wins this one with a little bit more offensive, eye-popping stats than Northern Illinois, with a little more offensive production. The team with more offensive production, which I think is going to be UAB, is going to win this game. Give me UAB in the Boca Raton Bowl. Next, we got the DXL Frisco Bowl, San Diego State taking on Ohio. Ohio with 41.2 points per game and 208.4 passing yards per game. 21.8 points allowed per game for their opponents, San Diego State, and allowing 32.9 passing yards per game. I think Ohio wins this game with passing, even though they're known for their attack on the ground. I think they switch it up. They're able to get it ready for the bowl game. I think Ohio wins this game, surprisingly, with passing. Give me the Ohio Bobcats in the Frisco Bowl. Next, we got the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl. It's going to be Florida International taking on Toledo. No, excuse me, that's the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl. It's going to be Marshall taking on South Florida. South Florida with 441.9 points allowed per game. They're on a 5-game losing streak after starting the season 7-0, barely making bowl eligibility. With Marshall 384 points per. Wait, no, that can't be right. No, 384.5 yards per game. Read my stats wrong. I think Marshall wins this game, with South Florida allowing 441.9 yards per game. Marshall with 384.5 yards per game. Give me Marshall in this one with just a little more offense than South Florida. Next, it's the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl. We got Florida International taking on Toledo. Now we get to talk about this game. Toledo 41.1 points per game with 223 passing yards per game. Florida International with 24.7 points allowed per game and 198.4 passing yard. Toledo with 223.6 rushing yards per game. Florida International with 198.4 rushing yards allowed per game. They have been good on the run defense, but their points allowed per game and Toledo's points per game, I think that's where Toledo's going to be able to win this game, able to win it with a little more rushing game, with a little more passing game, a little more offense. Overall, Toledo takes the Bahamas Bowl. Next we have the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Western Michigan taking on BYU. BYU with 129.4 rushing yards allowed per game. Western Michigan 204.6 rushing yards per game, just breaking the 200 mark on rushing yards per game. BYU with only 129 rushing yards allowed per game. BYU shuts down the run game of Western Michigan, and Western Michigan, they don't have much of a pass game. I don't think they can develop that by the time the bowl game comes around. Give me BYU, the independent team, winning this game. Next, it's the Jared Birmingham Bowl. Memphis taking on Wake Forest. Memphis with 534.3 yards per game. Wake Forest has allowed 465.3 yards per game. They have allowed that. Just process that for a minute, and you cannot tell me when Memphis is not going to win this game. Taking UCF to the limit twice. Those stats against Wake Forest with over 500 yards per game. Wake Forest allowing over 450 yards per game. You are not going to be able to convince me to change my pick. Memphis takes the Jared Birmingham Bowl convincingly by a large score. I don't know what the score is, but it's going to be a blowout. Memphis takes it easily. Next, we got the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Houston taking on Army. Houston, they have been known for their defense this year. They have been able to have some defensive shutdowns. I wouldn't say their defense shuts down, but their defense has been able to shut down some key offenses throughout the season. But they have no Ed Oliver. They have no De'Ara King, the two leaders on this defense, the two players that can shut down that run game on a defense. That's the one thing you need against Army, a run defense. When Army's averaging 296.3 rushing yards per game, you need a run defense. Without Ed Oliver and De'Ara King, Houston doesn't have that. That drops their defense from really good to just just above the radar, just average. Give me Army in this one in the Armed Forces Bowl. Final two bowl games, we've got the Dollar General Bowl between Buffalo and Troy. Buffalo with 195.8 rushing yards per game. Troy allowing 130.9 rushing yards per game. Troy is going to win this game, shutting down Buffalo's rush game, not their rush defense, but their run game. Stop them on the ground, and Troy wins the Dollar General Bowl. Finally, the SoFi Hawaii Bowl. Louisiana Tech taking on Hawaii. It wouldn't be the Hawaii Bowl without the team hosting it. Hawaii, they're in it every year. And you think they'd have the home field advantage, but I'm going to give you why they don't. 24.2 points per game by Louisiana Tech. Hawaii allowing 35.4 points per game, allowing 321.2 passing yards per game. They have 321.2 passing yards per game. Louisiana Tech allowing 193.6 passing yards per game. That's what they allow. Louisiana Tech wins this game on all aspects and beats Hawaii literally at their own game in the Hawaii Bowl, giving Louisiana Tech in the final bowl game of the first half of bowl season. That's going to end the predictions video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Next video, I will be breaking down the second half of bowl season, giving you my predictions, and be doing college football playoff coverage leading up to the semifinal games on December 29th, and do some college football playoff national championship previews, stats to know, more things like that. Those are the videos coming up, so make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for those. And until next time, again, thank you for watching this video.